Hey everyone, and I'm so glad you're here today, because we're doing a deep dive into Florence. Known as the heart of Renaissance, the land of gelato, and the place where your selfie game will go next level. If you're searching Florence Walking Tour, Florence Travel Guide, or Things to Do in Florence, Tuscany, you're in the right place. Because this is exactly what this video is all about. We arrived in Florence bright and early, ditched our car, because this city craves walking. And today we're planning to crush over 25,000 steps for you, and we're not being dramatic. We are going to bring you along, to discover all the famous landmarks in Florence, and tell you everything you need to know about one of the most beautiful cities in Italy. We will tour the famous churches, the famous piazzas, the famous palaces and galleries, the famous bridges, and show you the famous photography spots, as well as the best sunset in Tuscany. This was just a short montage of what you will see in this video. So, make sure you grab a drink, and you might want to sit down for this, because it is going to be epic. We hopped off the tram right beside Santa Maria Novella station. It was still early morning, in the month of May. The sun was already up and shining. We were surprised that the city was already this crowded, so early in the morning. Now, look around. This piazza is more than just a transport hub. Even at this hour, you can see local workers heading to work, to cafes, the occasional delivery van, people moving with purpose. The station name, Santa Maria Novella, gives a clue. If you're coming into Florence by rail, this is your landing pad. It's right in the city center, literally a short walk from all the action. You step out into Piazza della Stazione, with taxis, trams, buses, and about 1,000 people wondering where the Duomo is. Built in the 1930s, the design came from a group of young architects. They broke away from the heavy fascist styles of the era and gave Florence something sleek, modernist, but still respectful of Tuscan stone. Today, it's considered one of the best examples of modern architecture, blending with a Renaissance city. Architects worldwide actually study this station. It's useful because it connects Florence to basically everywhere. You can ride a high-speed train to Rome in about 1 hour 30 minutes, Milan in under 2 hours, even Venice in 2 hours. And right opposite the station is the Basilica. So let's take a walk there. I'll tell you a secret. Florence is compact, roughly 100 square kilometers, and its population is about 500,000 in the city proper, though the metro area bustles much more. Cost of living? It's not cheap. Rent and dining push you up compared to smaller Tuscan towns, but still slightly kinder than Rome or Milan. More on that later when we compare. As we step into Piazza di Santa Maria Novella, you're hit by a kind of architectural humility. It doesn't yell for attention, but it demands that you pause. The basilica itself is a fascinating mashup. Construction began around 1278 and the main structure was essentially complete by mid-14th century. But the façade, the masterpiece that glints in your camera, came decades later. See those white and green marbles? That color contrast, those classical proportions, the scrolls bridging the nave and side aisles. And if you look carefully, there's a frieze with ships with puffed sails. Fun fact, in the late 1500s, the astronomer Ignazio Danti installed some astronomical instruments on the façade so he could track solar movement and calibrate the equinox. If you want to enter, you can purchase a single ticket, or a day pass that grants you access to the basilica and the cloisters, and several other churches in Florence. But for our walk today, I'll show the highlights from outside so we don't burn hours queuing in lines. Because, believe me, with 25,000 steps to go, we'll need all our energy. Step inside the basilica and you get about 100 meters of nave length, soaring Gothic arches, and this incredible sense of light and balance. Now, out in the piazza, check out the two marble obelisks with little turtles at the base. They were designed in the 16th century, and they used to mark the starting point of chariot races held in the square. Alright, our legs are warmed up now. Let's slip into the winding lanes from here, toward Basilica di San Lorenzo. This is a real shift. From grand piazza to intimate alleys. As we walk, let me paint a bit of context. Florence sits in central Tuscany, cradled by the Arno River. It's the capital of the Tuscany region. The historic center is manageable on foot, which is why walking tours like this are gold. Compared to Rome or Milan, Florence's traffic is lighter, its size smaller, its appeal less about hustle and more about savoring. And talking about Rome, we have a 5 episodes mini-series, several hours long, where I brought you to almost everywhere inside Rome, and told you almost everything you need to know about the capital city of Italy. In case you missed it, the link is right up here and down below. We weaved past leather shops, colorful doors, potted geraniums on windowsills. You'll see stalls selling magnets, postcards, t-shirts and other tourist traps, yes, but also reminders. This city is as much lived in as it is visited. Florence, or Firenze in Italian, sits right in the middle of Tuscany, in central Italy. If you look at a map, it's kind of that sweet spot between the big powerhouses, about 230 kilometers north of Rome, 300 kilometers south of Milan, and less than 100 kilometers from Pisa. By now, you should know all these towns as we have already featured all of them in our previous videos. Exception is Milan, but do not worry, I will be bringing you there very soon. So make sure you subscribe to our channel if you have not done so yet. Florence's Santa Maria Novella station is the hub. The city also has its own airport, Piazzola, just 20 minutes by tram. But most long-haul flights land in Rome or Milan, and then you train it here. By car. Honestly, don't. Parking is a nightmare and the ZTL, the restricted traffic zones, are like a trap for tourists. Trust me, take the train or the tram instead. Now, the golden question. How many days do you need in Florence? I'd say 3 full days minimum. That gives you enough time for the Duomo complex, Uffizi, Ponte Vecchio, and maybe a side trip to Siena or Pisa. If you're art-obsessed or you love slow travel, stretch it to 5 days. Any less than 2 and you'll just tease yourself. And do not forget, there is a Sita bus at the central station, to take you to the luxury outlets, called the mall. Here it is. Basilica di San Lorenzo. One of Florence's oldest parishes. Its foundations traces back to the early Christian era. Right next to it there's the market zone, which can be a real treat. There you can buy leather goods, belts, bags, journals, jewelry, artisan crafts. This alley of stalls is buzzing. I swear one minute you see someone making a leather wallet on the spot. Another stall is offering handmade journals, other is selling scarves handwoven. I wandered and tried bargaining, but we will have a proper tour of the market area, later after lunch, so do stick around. But let's get back to the church. Just a few steps northeast of Santa Maria Novella and very close to the Duomo, sitting in the bustling Piazza di San Lorenzo. As I mentioned, it is the oldest church in Florence. Founded in 393 AD, San Lorenzo predates even the Duomo Santa Maria del Fiore, which we will visit in a short while. For centuries, it was the city's cathedral before the Duomo took over. The Medici adopted San Lorenzo as their official parish church. That's why they poured money into renovations, chapels, and crypts. If you want to understand Florence's godfathers, this is where you come. The church was rebuilt in the 15th century by Filippo Brunelleschi, the genius who also designed the Duomo's dome. Later, Michelangelo designed parts of the façade, never completed, and the famous Medici chapels inside. To see the interior, there is also a small fee to pay. So, we do recommend you buy the day pass for all the churches in Florence, if you want to access most of them. You'll notice the façade is, somehow unfinished. Just bare brown stone. Michelangelo had grand plans for a marble front, but money and politics got in the way. So today, it looks rugged and raw, a rare reminder that not everything got polished in Renaissance Florence. The piazza is always buzzing. Back in the Renaissance, this was the Medici's neighborhood, so imagine nobles, priests, and bankers all strutting around here. There are some arts installations and sculptures located in the piazza. I could not find any information about them, so if anyone has details, please do drop me a note in the comments section. I would really appreciate it. Florence isn't cheap. If you are looking for hotels here, well, let me tell you this. Mid-range hotels in the city center average around 150 to 200 euros per night, especially near the Duomo or Piazza della Signoria. Budget spots and guest houses run 80 to 120 euros, but you're likely outside the core. If you are into upscale luxury, like the Four Seasons, St. Regis, all those, then be prepared to fork out 500 to 800 euros per night, easily. And if you're dreaming of actually living here, here's the math. A one-bedroom apartment in the center rents for about 1,100 to 1,500 euros per month, outside the center around 800 to 1,000 euros. Add in groceries, transport, dining out, and you're looking at roughly 2,000 to 2,500 euros a month, for a single person to live comfortably. Not Milan or Rome expensive, but definitely pricier than smaller Tuscan towns. And here we are, one of Florence's absolute icons, the Piazza del Duomo. You've seen this place in countless movies, postcards, and travel books, but nothing, trust me, nothing, prepares you for standing right here in the middle of it. This piazza is home to the city's three crown jewels. The Duomo Santa Maria del Fiore, or simply, the Duomo. Giotto Bell Tower, the tall, elegant tower right next to it. The Baptistry of San Giovanni, that smaller octagonal building with the famous golden doors. Construction of the cathedral started way back in 1296 and wasn't completed until 1436. That's almost 150 years of effort. Imagine how many generations worked on this. At about 153 meters long and 114 meters high at the dome, it was the largest church in the world at the time, and today it's still among the top 10 biggest in Europe. The façade is jaw-dropping, is made of marble panels in green, pink, and white, decorated with saints, prophets, and apostles. Every statue and relief tells a story. Look up, there's Christ enthroned at the very top, blessing all of Florence. Inside, it feels surprisingly spacious and plain compared to the outside. But that's because the real masterpiece is the dome, the largest in the world when it was finished in 1436, and it's still the largest brick dome ever built. Now, across from the cathedral is the baptistry of San Giovanni, Florence's oldest religious building. Parts of it date back to the 4th or 5th century. It looks like a jewel box, wrapped in green and white marble stripes. But what makes it world famous are its bronze doors. The east doors, designed by Lorenzo Ghiberti, are nicknamed the Gates of Paradise. Even Michelangelo said so. From afar, they gleam like gold. Up close, you'll see 10 incredible panels depicting Old Testament scenes, carved with such depth they almost look like 3D paintings. Next to the cathedral stands the campanile, designed by Giotto in the 14th century. It's about 85 meters tall, covered in marble panels, and decorated with reliefs showing everything from biblical stories to scenes of daily medieval life. You can climb its 414 steps for one of the best views of Florence, and here's the trick. From the bell tower, you can actually see the cathedral dome itself, which you obviously can't see if you're standing on the dome. Around the piazza, you'll find cafes with front-row views of the Duomo. Pricey, yes, but sipping a cappuccino here feels priceless. Even early in the morning, the queues here are long. You'll see hundreds of people lined up just to get into the cathedral. It's free to enter the main church, but climbing the dome, accessing the baptistry, or going inside the museums usually requires a ticket. Right behind the cathedral, there's the Museo dell'Opera del Duomo, where you'll find original artworks and sculptures that used to decorate the cathedral, including Ghiberti original doors. The ones outside are replicas for protection. And if you want something really cinematic, you can hop on a horse-drawn carriage ride that starts right in this piazza clip-clopping through Florence's Renaissance streets. In short, Piazza del Duomo and Piazza San Giovanni are Florence's stage. Every statue, every dome, every Golden Gate is part of a 700-year-old show that still amazes millions of visitors every year. Okay, real talk. I admit, it was a little early for lunch. But the restaurant I am going to bring you to has almost 30,000 reviews on Google, and scored a notable 4.5 stars. And since we did not make an advanced reservation, the plan was to reach there the moment it opens, and hopefully we can secure a table. And the only reason we scored a table there was pure timing and hustle. Trattoria Zaza sits slap-bang in Piazza del Mercato Centrale, and it's the kind of place that wears its history on its sleeve. Stefano Bondi opened it in 1977, in what used to be family stalls and taverns. His mum, Mara, cooked for years and helped make the place what it is today. It started small and then swallowed room after room until now it's a quirky maze of dining spaces. Colonial touches in one room, bohemian vibes in another. So every table has its own story. Here's why we chose it. The kitchen sources ingredients from the market, next door. Literally, the vendors, few steps away, supply the restaurant every morning, which means what lands on your plate is fresh, seasonal, and gloriously unpretentious. Zaza isn't a tiny trattoria. It has one of those menus you can get lost in. Antipasti, pizzas, classic Tuscan pastas, grilled meats, and seasonal specials. We let the waiter lead and I'm glad we did. First, Aperol spritzes and pina coladas. Then a crisp green salad, the kind that tastes like summer. Followed by pasta, and we ordered a nice Florentine steak with rosemary potatoes. Bread arrived in a basket because Italy is not messing around with carbs. And you cannot leave this place without trying their dessert. Just listen to the waiter's recommendation, and you will not regret it. We finished up with a cup of coffee. My husband needed an espresso as well. It was incredible, and it is very hard to put my feelings into words, as it is probably one of the nicest restaurants I have been in Florence. And I have been in Florence more than 3 times now. If you want the convenience of booking ahead, the restaurant does take reservations. Though a lot of travelers still try the early drop tactic, and it worked for us. Before we keep wandering, quick favor. If you like walking food tours, Florence travel tips, or watching me try to walk off 3 courses, hit subscribe, smash that bell, and stick around. So we roll out of Trattoria Zaza, absolutely stuffed. And where do we head? Well, to one of the best ways to walk off lunch. Mercato Centrale, Florence. If you're Googling Mercato Centrale Florence or Florence Food Market, this is the one you want. The building itself is a proper showpiece. An iron and glass market hall, designed in the 19th century, by the same brain behind Milan's Galleria. And the covered market you see now was inaugurated around 1874. It got a modern refurbishment in recent years, to turn the upstairs into a sleek food hall, while keeping the old-school vendor energy below. Inside, this place is a feast for the senses. Rows of butchers hanging prosciutto, wedges of pecorino, stacked like treasure, baskets of bright tomatoes, barrels of olive oil, and stalls overflowing with spices, chocolate, and truffle products. You'll also find ready-to-eat counters, where you can grab fresh pasta, sandwiches, gelato, even a cheeky glass of Chianti. It's basically Florence under one roof. The smell of bread in one corner, sizzling meat in another. It's busy, but surprisingly clean and well organized, more like a living postcard than a chaotic bazaar. What's for sale? Well, everything your Tuscan cookbook dreams of. Cured meats, prosciutto and ham, fresh cheese, jars of aged balsamic vinegar, dried pasta and spices, fresh vegetables. Those tomatoes here are shockingly sweet. There are other fruits, bottles of local Chianti, chocolate, bread, pork products, seafood in the fish corner, and even specialty items like truffles and artisan preserves. You'll also find stalls selling olive oil, ready-to-eat fried goodies, and little counters, with quick primi, if you're in a rush. If it's a part of Tuscan food culture, then it's probably here. Is it clean? Short answer. Yes, and since the 2014 revamp, the market is much more orderly and hygienic than you might expect from a busy historic market. That said, it's a working market and tends to get chaotic at peak lunch times. So, expect crowds and some stall hustle. If you want calm, go early. Trip reviews say it's lively and delicious, with the usual small grain complaints about speed or crowd management on busy days. Just check out the queue here. There's a popular pasta counter in Mercato Centrale, and on social media, it is known as La Primaria or La Primi something. Locals and travelers rave about quick, fresh pasta lunches. People report around €6 for a primi plate, perfect when you want something fast and excellent. We couldn't resist. We bought some truffle paste and a bottle of aged vinegar, the good kind, right from market artisans. Later on, we found a shop and bought some chocolates and nougats. The market's proximity to the Mercato di San Lorenzo means you can do a one-block gourmet loop. Fresh food inside, leather stalls and souvenirs outside. The leather goods, at the market, range from touristy to genuinely artisanal. I scored a leather notebook that'll be my faithful travel diary. There are also different sizes, at different prices. But remember to bargain with charm, and not with attitude. The outside stalls are historic. Mercato di San Lorenzo is where a lot of leather trade hangs out. So you'll see belts, bags, jackets, and those classic, Florence leather, vendors. And it does not end here. Later in this video, I will bring you to another part Florence, where you can find even luxury items, like jewelry and watches. It is along Ponte Vecchio. But now, it is time for us to continue our adventure, and for that we have to walk across the Piazza del Duomo once more, to reach our next landmark. If you want to avoid that, then you can have your lunch at Trattoria Zaza, before you visit the Duomo, and then straight on to Piazza della Repubblica. But we were too early for lunch, we had to walk to and fro, not that we are complaining. So here it is, the Giotto Tower and crowds still queuing, to go inside the Duomo. We took a slow second look at the Duomo façade. Every statue, every carved panel is a story. The exterior is a riot of green, pink, and white marbles, and those reliefs and saints. By the time we circled back toward the Duomo, Florence had a surprise waiting for us. Right there, in front of the cathedral's intricate marble facade, a street performer had set up. Suddenly the whole piazza was filled with the soaring notes of Andrea Bocelli's Con te partirò. Goosebumps, seriously. Honestly, tell me in the comments. Have you ever stumbled on music that made you stop in your tracks while traveling? Alright, so after that spine-tingling moment in front of the Duomo, we carried on walking just a few minutes down the street toward Piazza della Repubblica. This stretch is like Florence showing off its modern side. The narrow medieval lanes suddenly open into broad shopping streets, lined with big-name fashion boutiques. Gucci, Prada, you name it. And if high-end isn't your thing, don't worry, you'll still find gelato shops, cafes with outdoor seating, and the usual tourist stalls, selling magnets and leather handbags. As we walked, the crowd thickened. Tourists juggling shopping bags, locals zipping past on bikes, kids chasing pigeons. You really feel the energy change as you near the piazza. And then suddenly, there it is. Piazza della Repubblica, Florence's living room. You can't miss the massive triumphal arch dominating the square, with its distinct inscription across the top. Fun fact: this piazza wasn't always so glamorous. It used to be the site of Florence's old ghetto and market area before being completely redesigned in the late 19th century, when Florence was briefly the capital of Italy. And smack in the middle, the famous antique-style merry-go-round. It feels a little surreal. The vibe here is more relaxed than Piazza del Duomo. Street musicians play, artists sketch caricatures, cafes spill onto the square, with white tablecloths. From Piazza della Repubblica, we kept walking through Florence streets, weaving between fashion boutiques and little artisan shops. The crowd doesn't really thin out here. If anything, it feels busier, but in that fun, shoulder-to-shoulder fashion. I'm in the heart of the city, kind of way. And soon enough, we reached Orse Michele. This isn't your typical Florence landmark. From the outside it almost looks like a fortress, tall, square, not your classic church silhouette. That's because it actually started life as a grain market, back in the 14th century. Eventually, they converted it into a church, and today it's famous for its incredible statues tucked into niches around the exterior. Each guild in Florence. Think the bakers, the wool merchants, the bankers, and they sponsored their own patron saint statue here. It's like medieval advertising, carved in stone. Right next to the church, we stopped by some street stalls, and yes, temptation struck. I found this beautiful leather bag. Soft, buttery leather, hand-stitched, made by a sweet lady who explained every detail like she was introducing her child. Meanwhile, my husband came across this street artist, painting the Mona Lisa, directly onto the pavement. We promised ourselves we'd circle back later, towards the end of this video, to see it finished. His work is really amazing. As for me, I was still busy with my leather bag purchase. The price? Let's just say, compared to the boutiques, it felt like a steal. Would you have caved too, or walked away? Isn't that one of the best parts of Florence? Around every corner, there's someone creating something beautiful, from opera singers to chalk artists. This city just doesn't know how to be boring. This is one of the city's most legendary sandwich stalls. It's impossible to miss because they've got an entire roasted pig, the whole thing, proudly displayed right in the window. This place has been serving panini for over a century, and you can tell they've perfected the art of porchetta. Quick question. How do you like my new leather bag? That the one on my right shoulder? I think it's perfect for the beach, or even for carrying stuff, around cities like Florence. Okay guys, please take a seat now. Because we are reaching one of Florence's most iconic squares. Piazza della Signoria. And wow! This place is an open-air museum. The moment you step in, you're hit with sculptures everywhere. To the left, the Fountain of Neptune, nicknamed the Big White One. Straight ahead, the Palazzo Vecchio, Florence's medieval town hall, standing tall with that unmistakable tower you've probably seen in movies. There is a 4-meter bronze statue signed by Thomas J. Price, in the center of the piazza. The artist says that, by monumentalizing the ordinary, we are able to critique what we consider important, what we consider valuable within our communities, and what we collectively choose to give public space to. Now, as you step closer to Palazzo Vecchio, check out the entrance. It's flanked by 2 mighty statues that set the tone for the whole square. On the left, you've got a replica of Michelangelo's David. The real one, of course, lives safely inside the Accademia Gallery, but this copy still packs a punch. And on the right? That's Hercules in Cacus, a sculpture by Baccio Bandinelli. Hercules stands tall and muscular, showing off Renaissance ideals of strength and power. Alright, once you've soaked in the drama outside, step through those doors, because Palazzo Vecchio is even more of a show inside. This was the political heart of Florence, home to the Medici family before they moved over to the Pitti Palace. Walking inside honestly feels like stepping into a Renaissance movie set. The star of the show? The Salone dei Cinquecento. The Hall of the 500. It's massive, over 50 meters long, with towering frescoes by Vasari. Of course you have to pay a fee to go in, and another fee if you want to climb the tower. And if you're up for a climb, take on the Arnolfo Tower. It's 95 meters tall, and from the top you get one of the absolute best views over Florence. Right in the middle of Piazza della Signoria, just steps away from Palazzo Vecchio, you'll spot the Fountain of Neptune. Built in the 1500s by Bartolomeo Ammanati, with help from Giambologna, Neptune here is carved in white Carrara marble, towering like a Roman god in command of the seas. Look closer, and you'll see Neptune's chariot surrounded by seahorses, bronze nymphs, satyrs, and mythical figures, all splashing around him. Nestled in Piazza della Signoria, adjacent to the Palazzo Vecchio, the Loggia dei Lanci is this iconic 14th century structure that has evolved into a remarkable, free, open-air museum. Originally constructed between 1376 and 1382, it was designed to host public ceremonies and gatherings of the Florentine Republic. Over time, it became a display space for sculptures, particularly during the 16th century when the Medici family commissioned several masterpieces to be placed here. The name Lanci refers to the German mercenaries who guarded the Medici during their rule, highlighting the political significance of the structure. Today, the Loggia serves as an open-air gallery, showcasing a blend of Renaissance and ancient sculptures. The Loggia houses several renowned sculptures like Perseus with the head of Medusa, the rape of the Sabine women, Hercules and the centaur, Menelaus supporting the body of Patroclus and the rape of Polyxena, just to name a few. Visit it early morning or late afternoon, if you are into photography, as it provides soft lighting, enhancing the sculpture's details and it is less crowded. Just steps away from the Palazzo Vecchio, sits the Uffizi Gallery. Built in the mid-1500s by Giorgio Vasari, it was originally designed as Uffizi, meaning offices for Florentine magistrates. But the Medici family, being the greatest art collectors of their time, slowly filled the corridors with treasures from their private collections. By the late 16th century, the Uffizi was already becoming a museum, making it one of the oldest public art galleries in Europe. If you love Renaissance art, this place is the Holy Grail. The Uffizi is huge, with more than 50 rooms arranged chronologically, showcasing masterpieces from the Middle Ages to the Baroque era. Standard entry is around €25 in high season and online booking in advance is highly recommended, as queues can be hours long. A full visit can take 3 to 4 hours, but art lovers could easily spend the entire day, admiring the works of Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Caravaggio, Raphael, Giotto. The list is endless. Right at the end of this alley, the space opens up, and there it is, the Arno River. The air feels lighter, brighter, like the city's been leading you to this reveal all along. Ponte Vecchio means old bridge, and yes, it's ancient. The current version dates to the 14th century, rebuilt after floods. It's famous not just for its age but because it's the only bridge in Florence that survived World War II intact. And the reason why? They say Hitler ordered it left alone. We are now walking onto it, and it's packed. Jewelry shops, goldsmiths, luxury watches. Tiny storefronts squeezed together, overflowing with gold, gems, even some art repro stuff. Oh look, we even came across a new little friend right here. And it seems he was waiting for us, to be featured in our video. From the center of the bridge, you get this breathtaking view. The Arno stretched out, lined by buildings with rust-colored roofs, bridges arching over its flow. Upstream, downstream, you can spot several other bridges, like Ponte Santa Trinita, Ponte alle Grazie, etc. There's also a half-bust sculpture right in the center of the bridge, of Benvenuto Cellini. This here is the right spot for those Instagram photos. And right next to this statue is the perfect spot, to catch the perfect sunset in Florence. And we will do that later on, so just stick around till the end. So we crossed over to the other side, Oltrarno. It was still crowded, but the vibe shifted. More locals, fewer tour groups. First thing I needed: gelato. My husband stopped at a gelateria and bought me my favorite. 2 scoops, as always. We walked along Via de Guicciardini, which is narrower and shaded by tall buildings. A few steps ahead, on the right, we found a shop with beautiful ceramics, colorful, glazed, with hand-painted patterns. It felt like a ceramic arts gallery of Florence. Bowls, plates, little decorative tiles, vases. It is called Ceramiche d'Arte, and this shop has been here for many years. It's expensive, but the ceramic pieces are beautiful, as in, really beautiful. Along the way, we came across even more luxury shops. This time, selling umbrellas with ornate handles, luxury leather bags and wallets that smell like Italy, and other shiny goods that will burn a hole in your wallet. Then, there it was. Palazzo Pitti appeared on our left. Palazzo Pitti sits massive and imposing on this side of the river. Exterior-wise, it has this rusticated stone façade, with large windows, and it is very symmetrical, yet very grand. It is the largest palace in Florence, and it looks the part. A massive, fortress-like Renaissance façade stretching over 200 meters. Unlike the ornate Gothic flair of the Duomo or the elegant civic style of Palazzo Vecchio, this one is bold, heavy, and monumental. Construction was started in 1458, a wealthy Florentine banker and rival to the Medici family. Ironically, his palace eventually became Medici property in 1549. The Medici massively enlarged it, and the Italian royal family also lived here. Behind the palace stretched the Boboli Gardens, one of the most famous Renaissance gardens in the world. Covering about 11 acres, it's less a park and more a royal theatrical stage built into the hillside. It's a blend of manicured lawns, geometric hedges, grottos, fountains, and long tree-lined avenues leading to scenic viewpoints. We couldn't go in that day, as it was closed. Palazzo Pitti is closed on Mondays, also on January 1st and December 25th. You'll need at least 2 to 3 hours if you want to see both palace and gardens, and you will need to buy a ticket to go in. Inside, you will find the Palatine Gallery, the royal apartments, and there is an open-air theater used for Medici, in the garden. Boboli Gardens also features a fountain of Neptune, and a surreal cave-like structure decorated with stalactites and mosaics. You can also enjoy panoramic views. Since the gardens climb uphill, Further up the road, on the right this time, we passed the church of Saint Felice in Piazza. It looked closed so we couldn't go in right then, but here's what I know. The church's first records go back to the 11th century. So we will come back to it later on, and hopefully it will be open then. This road looks tiny. It is called the Via Romana, one of Florence's oldest roads. It was literally the medieval path toward Rome, hence the name. Here, instead of international boutiques or fast fashion chains, you get artisan workshops, tiny leather shops, old-fashioned hardware stores, and specialty boutiques. At the end of Via Romana, the road suddenly opens up and you're face to face with one of Florence's great medieval gates. Porta Romana. Built in 1326, it's the largest and most impressive surviving gate of Florence's 14th century defensive walls. Back then, it was the city's official southern entrance, welcoming popes, pilgrims, and merchants traveling from Rome. It's a massive stone arch flanked by high walls, still imposing even though most of the city walls have long disappeared. As soon as you pass through Porta Romana, look to your left. And tucked just behind the old gate is this green oasis. It's one of those places most tourists skip, which is why it feels like a small secret of Florence. These gardens once belonged to the royal stables of the Italian king when Florence was briefly the capital of Italy. Today it's more of a public park, with wide lawns, gravel paths, shady trees, and benches. At the center of the royal stables garden is the old stable building itself. Once used to house royal horses and carriages, today it has been adapted for exhibitions, cultural events, and community use. We spend half an hour in the garden, feeling a bit more human after resting our legs. Here's the thing though, there's no direct passage from these gardens to where we're headed next. So, we retraced our way towards the Arno River, and good thing. We passed by Saint Felice in Piazza again, and this time, the doors were open. The church dates back to the 10th century and has layers of history. Inside, the standout is a fresco by Pontormo. Inside, this church feels intimate and personal. And here's a little bonus. Unlike many of Florence's headline churches, entry is free. So, it's the kind of place where you can just sit quietly for a few minutes without the chaos of ticket lines. Refreshed by this unexpected stop, we kept heading north, threading our way back toward the Arno River. This time, we stayed on the south bank, the Oltrarno side, opposite the Uffizi Gallery. The street here is called Lungarno Torrigiani, and honestly, it feels like a different Florence compared to the crowded alleys around the Duomo. Across the water, you get perfect postcard angles of the Uffizi, the Vasari corridor, and the dome of the Duomo peeking above the skyline. Every few meters, the perspective shifts, giving you yet another Florence view worth snapping. And of course, it is also the perfect spot for some amazing photos, for your social media. Arno River is the lifeline of Florence. For centuries, it powered mills, carried goods, and unfortunately, brought floods. The worst one in 1966 submerged the city and damaged countless masterpieces. As we walked, it's hard not to imagine the city battling with its river, then flourishing because of it. Walking east along the river bank, we were in one of Florence's most elegant but less tourist-clogged areas. Compared to Ponte Vecchio frenzy, this section feels like Florence is exhaling. This bridge doesn't have the jewelry shops or fame of Ponte Vecchio, but it has a layered story. This is Ponte alle Grazie, and the original dates back to 1237, making it one of Florence's oldest bridges. What you see in the background is the Basilica of Santa Croce, and we will visit it later in this video. But for now, I am going to bring you on one of the most breathtaking walks in Florence. And for that I needed fuel. So time for more gelato, because I will need all the energy. From the bridge all the way up to Piazzale Michelangelo. It's a climb, yes, but every step rewards you with history. And views that get better and better until the whole city unfolds beneath your feet. First, we need to cross the Porta San Miniato, a medieval city gate that feels like it's been guarding Florence for centuries. It's a reminder that this was once the edge of the walled city. Built in the 13th century, it's one of the smaller gates but incredibly atmospheric. Imagine traders and pilgrims entering the city through this very passage centuries ago. Passing under the arch, you almost feel like you've slipped into another time. Instead of going up the road, my husband suggested that we take a detour, by walking up steps, along the slopes of the hill. Halfway up, our detour opened into Giardino delle Rose, or Rose Garden. It's free to enter, and it feels like stumbling into a secret. Terraces climb the hillside, each one bursting with over 350 varieties of roses. Some are vivid reds, others delicate pinks or creamy whites. In May and June, the garden becomes a living rainbow, and the air is heavy with fragrance. But it's not just flowers. Tucked between the roses are whimsical bronze sculptures. Locals know this garden well. You'll see Florentines stretched out with books, sketchpads, or simply lost in thought. From the garden, the climb became steeper. Stone steps zigzagged their way up, and though your legs might start to protest, your eyes are rewarded at every turn. And then we reached a set of wide stone steps, and once we climbed them, the world finally opens. But right here, it was scorching hot, and my skin suddenly felt it was burning. This is Piazzale Michelangelo, a vast 8,000 square meters terrace. But let's be honest. The real masterpiece here is the view. Spread before you is Florence in its entirety. The Arno slices through the city like a ribbon of silver, spanned by its bridges. Ponte Vecchio glowing golden, Ponte Santa Trinita elegant and graceful. In the center of this piazza stands a bronze replica of Michelangelo's David, gazing out protectively over the city. Piazzale Michelangelo isn't old like the Duomo or medieval like Ponte Vecchio. It's actually a 19th century creation. The piazza itself is large, open, and often buzzing with life. By day, it's filled with buskers, painters, and vendors selling everything from gelato to caricatures. By evening, it transforms into a gathering place. And more about this in a while, but first let us enjoy some Aperol and music at the best spot in Florence. Just behind the piazza sits a little-known treasure. Loggia del Piazzale Michelangelo. This shaded pavilion, turned cafe bar is, in my opinion, the best chill-out spot in all of Florence. Inside, there's live music, mixing with the chatter of travelers. The view here is unbeatable. Even if you are seated inside, with giant glass windows that frame Florence like a moving painting. But for us, the outdoor seating area was the best, and join us. Let's enjoy this moment together. Aperol spritzes glisten on tables like orange jewels, plates of olives and crostini arrive as if by magic, and everyone seems to sink a little deeper into their chairs with every sip. We spend a full hour here, unwinding, snacking, sipping something cool. My feet, aching from cobblestones all day, finally forgave me. It was perfect. But then my husband leaned in and reminded me, if we want to catch the sunset, we have to keep moving. So, reluctantly, we left the comfort of the loggia and walked back out into the square, to enjoy the views of Florence. The piazza unfolds, about 8,000 square meters of open space, like a giant balcony suspended over Florence. It's perched on a hill in the Oltrarno district, just south of the Arno River, with nothing blocking its commanding view of the city. From the terrace, Florence opened up before us. The Duomo, crowned by Brunelleschi's dome, glowed in the sun. Giotto Bell Tower rose elegantly beside it, and in the distance, the tower of Palazzo Vecchio stood tall like Florence's watchful guardian. The Arno River stretched below, its bridges, especially the Ponte Vecchio, strung across it like pearls. Beyond the rooftops, the Tuscan hills rolled gently, dotted with cypress trees, vineyards, and villas that seemed painted onto the horizon. This was the perfect spot to pause and tell Florence's story. How it began as a Roman settlement in 59 BC, how it flourished under the Medici into the birthplace of the Renaissance, giving the world geniuses like Leonardo, Dante, and Michelangelo. You could almost feel that history in the air, baked into every terracotta rooftop. Crowds had gathered early, baking in the heat, while staking out the best spots like it was a concert. Cameras pointed west and bottles of wine opened. This was the show of the day in Florence. By now, the sun was starting to tilt westward. It was only 7:30 p.m., still nearly 2 hours before sunset, but the stairs were already jammed. We could have joined the crowd and stayed there until sunset, but my husband had other plans. Piazzale Michelangelo is probably the most iconic place to watch the sun sink, but we decided to chase a different view. We wanted to bring you a different perspective, and for that we needed to climb back down, back to the Ponte Vecchio. To be honest, that was all my husband's idea. I was slightly skeptical, thinking, why would everyone in Florence choose to wait at the Piazzale Michelangelo, and be on higher grounds to get the best views, and why were we walking away from this spot? But as usual, I followed, knowing that something good was surely waiting ahead. So guys, follow me, let's keep going. The walk down was easy, shaded by trees and buildings, and the air was finally cooling. Florence began humbly, as a Roman settlement founded in 59 BC. The very heart of the city, Piazza della Repubblica, still echoes that Roman forum where markets bustled and soldiers once marched. Florence grew fiercely independent and wealthy, ringed by defensive walls and crossed by the Arno River, which became both its lifeline and its occasional curse with floods. Banking families turned Florence into Europe's financial hub, and their coins, the gold florin, became the standard currency across much of the continent. And then came the Medici. This one family, through their patronage of art, science, and architecture, transformed Florence into the beating heart of the Renaissance. Soon, we crossed the Arno again. From the bridge, we caught glimpses of the sun slowly lowering, casting a warm amber glow across the water. We still had an hour, but the city was already glowing like liquid gold. 1 hour meant that we still had time for one more landmark, our final stop. And this is the Piazza di Santa Croce. Compared to the chaos up on the hill, this part of Florence felt calm, shaded, almost contemplative. The streets leading to the square were already starting to empty. Perhaps it was just this quieter part of town, or maybe Florence itself was finally beginning to exhale after a long, hot day. Whatever it was, the atmosphere here was completely different. The piazza itself is one of the largest in Florence. A broad, open rectangle of stone paving, surrounded by historic palazzi, cafes, and trattorias tucked neatly along its edges. And there it was, the Basilica of Santa Croce. It's known as the Temple of the Italian Glories, because inside lie the tombs of some of Italy's greatest minds. Michelangelo rests here, alongside Galileo, Machiavelli, Rossini, and Ghiberti. Even Dante has a cenotaph here, though his body is in Ravenna. Walking through those doors is like walking into a hall of fame for genius itself. Construction began in 1294 by the same architect who worked on the Duomo. With its soaring Gothic interior of 16 chapels, Giotto frescoes, and delicate stained glass, Santa Croce is breathtaking. The current marble façade, however, is relatively new and was only added in the 19th century, paid for by a wealthy British patron. And at this hour, the white façade dazzled like gold, glowing even brighter. The piazza was large enough that the crowd seemed to melt away, leaving us with the church, the sky, and the hum of Florence slowing down for the night. From there, we wandered back towards Piazza della Signoria. The walk was hushed, almost dreamlike. And when we arrived, what had been a bustling square earlier in the day was now far more peaceful. The statues stood silent under the soft glow of the setting sun, Palazzo Vecchio illuminated against the darkening sky. If you want photographs without the chaos, this is the hour to come. It felt like the city had gently opened itself back up to us. Less crowded, more intimate, and infinitely more magical. We strolled back toward the Arno as the sky softened into shades of peach and violet. The streets felt somehow quieter now, almost as if Florence herself was following us to the river for the last act of the day. And then there it was. Ponte Vecchio. We found our spot right in the middle of the bridge, facing west, the sun hanging low over the water. It was crowded, yes, but it didn't feel suffocating. Instead, it felt like we were part of something shared. Dozens of strangers united in a single moment of anticipation. Couples leaned on the stone railing, families lifted their children higher for a better view, and travelers like us clutched cameras and gelatos, all waiting for the same golden glow. Somewhere nearby, a guitarist began to play. His soft chords mixed with the hum of conversation, turning the bridge into a living concert hall. The music floated over the river, as if it too was waiting for the sun to sink. Then, all of a sudden, it felt like Florence herself was whispering her final secret to us. We walked back to check the work of the street painter. And it hit me. Florence is not about rushing from site to site, but about pausing, breathing, and letting beauty find you. It's in the way light hits the Duomo's marble, the way porchetta perfumes a street corner, the hush of a piazza at dusk. And in this sunset, where strangers stop being strangers, just silhouettes united by awe. Florence, at dusk, was romantic, a little melancholic. The kind of moment that makes you wish time would just stay still. And maybe that's Florence's magic. It doesn't just show you beauty, it makes you ache for it, even as you're living it. As the last glow slipped behind the Tuscan hills, we felt that familiar sadness. Our day was ending, our story was winding down. But Florence had given us her curtain call. A reminder that the city, like the sunset, will always be waiting for us to return.